This is Right on the Money with Tom Mosley, founder of Mosley Wealth Management.
Our mission at Mosley Wealth Management is to help people make sure they never run out of income the rest of their life and they pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes.
Since 1995, Tom Mosley and his team have been creating comprehensive, custom financial plans to help you preserve what you've earned and pursue what you've envisioned.
In retirement, a lot of people have built a great lump sum. We call that your lumber yard. But you need a blueprint to put that lumber yard into a plan that you can build a retirement house to live in.
What's on your mind this week, Southern California? The stock market, taxes, inflation, income, Social Security, how to ease into the life of your dreams? Let's discover conservative financial strategies starting right now. This is your Right on the Money Radio Hour with Tom Mosley.
And a very happy weekend to you. You are listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California. And I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. Each week, Tom and I are committed to providing you with retirement planning solutions. And this weekend, we have a very special episode for you. The title of today's show is Everything You Wanted to Know About Generational Wealth, but we're afraid to ask. Nothing is off the table this weekend. We're going to be talking about making generational wealth, receiving it, and passing it on to your heirs. So, Tom, my friend, it's great to be back in the radio booth with you. How are you this weekend?
I'm doing very well and good. Always good to be with you.
Well, thank you, friend. I would love for you to share with our audience a little bit about the inspiration behind today's show.
Well, I feel like the Apostle Paul a little bit where he said, I have learned to be content with little and with a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his experience. And in my life, in the time that I've lived, I've also gone through times where I've had little, and I'm going through a time right now where God's blessings are very apparent upon my life in a monetary way. I think you can go through life in a monetary way being blessed and not be blessed in a lot of other ways. But we're talking about monetary blessings right now. We're talking about generational wealth. And in the first segment, my desire is to encourage those of you who might be listening to me, and you might listen to this show on a regular basis because you've got it on in the car and you're traveling somewhere, or it just comes on automatically every Saturday at this time. And some of you might have thought, well, geez, I wish I had a lot of money. I wish I had some assets, and I'd sure call up and I would try to invest with Tom and the advisors at Mosley Wealth Management. Well, a lot of people have a desire to leave a legacy. They have a desire to break a cycle of poverty. And there's no other way for it, where you just don't have a lot to leave from generation to generation, because many, many people want to see things a lot easier for their children and their heirs. So that's the motivation behind this first segment is, how do we build generational wealth?
Right. And I feel like I'm hearing that term a lot more. There's definitely an interest, especially in the Gen Z. I hear that a lot. They're wanting to learn how to do this. And I think this, and I'm excited about today's show. It applies to you no matter where you are in your own retirement journey, because we are going to cover all the phases of building generational wealth. But don't you feel like you're hearing that term yourself a lot more?
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of people are looking, because there's one big word that's out there financially right now, whether it's the market, the interest rates, inflation, the political environment, and that's uncertainty. And uncertainty is just a positive, or a little bit more positive way of saying fear, because people don't see the future and they're thinking, well, if I could just get a little bit ahead or get a little bit in reserve, you never know when you're going to need it. And I think that's reading through to so many people right now, more so than maybe in other times that at least I've lived.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with the uncertainty of, I know a lot of folks are asking, will Social Security be there for me? Will a lot of these things be there for me? Where are taxes going to go? And so I think there's a security that can come with knowing if you can build that generational wealth for yourself and your family that comes with that. So in this first segment, we're going to be talking about making it. So I know you have a list here of several ways that folks can prioritize making generational wealth. What's at the top of that list?
Well, number one is you need to make retirement savings your number one priority. You really do. You've got to start saving. You got to start putting the money away. And I always tell people, if you're young, you need to take advantage of any 401k or 403b or any kind of plan. If you don't have those through work, get an IRA, get a Roth IRA, and save early and save often. You and I have a mutual friend that we both worked with before, Dave Bach. He's a
Hmm.
13-time New York Times best-selling author, wrote The Automatic Millionaire, and in The Latte Factor, his last bestseller, #1 hit, he talks about if a person starts saving at 20 and they save for 8 years and stop, and they save a certain amount at a certain interest rate, you can do it any way you want to do it. And another person starts at 28 and they save all the way to 65 because they started early, and the power of compound interest that Mark Twain called the eighth wonder of the world, having your money work for you over time, having your money making money, not just you making money. That's compound interest and what it does. So I always encourage people, get involved in your retirement savings plan. Make that a priority. You got to start early, do it often. And for sure, Kristin, and for sure, all of you who are listening, take advantage of the employee match. If a
Hmm.
company's going to give you 4% in your retirement plan, I've actually had people come in and say, Tom, my company will give me a 4% match in my retirement plan. Should I invest in my retirement plan? Well, let me say this. If you put in $4 and somebody else automatically made that $8, is that a good deal?
Hmm.
I mean, I think it is, and so get involved and start making retirement savings a priority as early as you can. The number one key of building generational wealth that I see in people that are coming to me is not just inheriting it, like we'll talk about later in the show,
Hmm.
but building it because you sacrifice, you take a little bit of your paycheck and you put it away for a long time down the road when you're
Yes.
59 and a half or older. And that's the way to start building generational wealth.
Absolutely. And that was the whole premise of the book, The Automatic Millionaires. When you make it automatic, you don't think about it, it compounds over time. And actually, I just saw, Tom, a couple nights ago that Dave posted he is in the process of doing an update for that book. So that'll be really exciting when that comes out.
Yeah, the poor guy, he's having to spend 4 years now. He's in his fourth year of living in Florence, Italy. And he FaceTimed me one time about 2 years ago at Galileo's house from, centuries ago. And it's got a plaque on the wall. So, yeah, I'm glad he's working, and I'm
Yeah.
glad he's writing a book, rewriting a book.
Yes, updating it for sure.
Yeah.
Well, moving on down the list, I think this one is very interesting. One of the ones on here is buy a house. This is especially interesting for our listeners here in Southern California.
I'm not a realtor. I'm not a realtor. I'm a financial planner. I'm an advisor that helps people, make sure they never run out of money the rest of their life, and they save as much as they can and pay as little as they have to pay in taxes. But the greatest way for you to build wealth is to buy a house. Buy one as soon as you can. You don't have to buy the final house first. You can buy what's called a starter house. I wouldn't wait till interest rates got down below 2% like they were 3 years ago. I wish you could have bought one then,
Hmm.
but I would save every penny I could for a down payment, and then as the interest rates begin to come down, and they will eventually, buy a house. It is an asset that grows in historically. Historically, it has grown at a remarkable rate. And
Hmm.
most of the people, when they set out to build generational wealth, they have in mind that, hey, I want to live in a house the rest of my life, not in a tent or on a college campus now, but
Hmm.
not in a tent, but I want to live in a house. So own the house. Don't be a renter. Don't be paying somebody else's mortgage on a house that they're growing the equity in. You be paying that mortgage so that you can be growing your equity. And then as you get older, your family, maybe if you have a family, it gets bigger, buy a bigger house, but buy a house. Great way to build generational wealth.
Absolutely. Well, the next one on the list needs a little explanation. Diversify your assets. But I know that there's so much more because a lot of folks get confused when we talk about diversification of what we actually mean. So let's get into what it means to truly diversify your assets.
Well, don't just invest in one thing. Have more pots going on the stove, if you understand what I'm saying. If I don't know a lot about cooking, as evidenced by the fact that I can burn water, but I promise you this, that when I see my wife cooking a great meal and I'm in there trying to help her every way I can, I do all the dishes at my house because she does all the messing up of the dishes and I clean them up if she messes them up and makes food. But I guarantee you, there are more than one pot. There's more than one burner going at a time when we have a nice big meal, and she brings it all together. So diversify your assets. Don't just have one thing. I had a young man, 31 years old, in my office about 2 months ago, and he was discouraged about saving for wealth. Okay.
Mm.
And why was he discouraged? Because 3 years ago, he got sold by one of his buddies to jump head over heels 100% in Bitcoin. And he
Mm.
jumped in Bitcoin, and he jumped in through one of the companies that was debunked or went poorly sideways. And oh yeah, now Bitcoin is back and it's going again, but waiting for the next flop maybe. So I don't necessarily think it's wrong if you choose to do so. I don't recommend it
Mhm.
because it's an unregulated security. It's not wrong to get involved in speculative things, okay? Things where you're taking a chance, but not all your money. That's why I said earlier, buy a house. That's solid. Get invested in your retirement plan. That's solid. Diversify those assets among a broad spectrum of things, because some are going to go up and
Mhm.
some are going to go down, and you cannot put all of your money in one basket. You need to spread it around. Great way to build wealth.
Absolutely. And it's not just about having multiple IRAs or multiple mutual funds. That's not what we mean. It's literally diversifying yourself across different asset classes that can make all the difference.
You know what? It's like always, Kristen, I've run out of time. I've got to end this session pretty
Yes.
soon. But you need to educate yourself. You need to get a good education. You need to put your money away in a tax efficient way. If you're young and you have a family, generational wealth will never come to your family if you pass away early. So you probably need some form of life insurance, probably a term life insurance policy, and you need to at all cost avoid debt. You want to have somebody help you? I've got a lot of people that work for me who are great fiduciary advisors who are younger, and they're starting out in the path of building generational wealth, and they've learned a lot about it by helping other people do it. If you need help, call in. We can help start your retirement blueprint even in your 20s and 30s, but you've got to call in.
It's never too early to get started, and that number to call to get your complimentary personalized retirement blueprint is 888-930-5609. Don't go anywhere. We've got a lot more to cover regarding this important subject of generational wealth right after this.
More Right on the Money with Tom Mosley right after this. Get your own no-cost retirement plan review at 888-930-5609.
Do you know how you'll generate income from your investments along with your Social Security in retirement? In our opinion, it's never too early to start the income planning process for your future. An income plan can help you work towards creating a steady stream of income to support you throughout your retirement years. Don't leave your financial future to chance. Take control today and start income planning for your retirement. Call the team at Mosley Wealth Management so we can help you design a complimentary written income plan to help you live the retirement you've always wanted. Call 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609. Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, and today's show is all about generational wealth, making it, receiving it, and passing it on. In that first segment, we talked a lot about how you can make it and the different steps you can take. Of course, there's so much more that we could talk about, but we're trying to keep the show moving along here. It's time for us to talk about receiving generational wealth. And this is really important because how you handle it can make all the difference between how much you get to keep, right, Tom?
That's exactly right. And it's also something that I have to tell you out there, that through the course of 29 plus years now of doing this, I have literally run into people who along the way who pretty much put it in low gear and didn't really aggressively go after building their own retirement plan, buying their own house. They would refi and take all the money out so they could go have pleasure. And I've actually had people tell me that their plan was for retirement inheriting generational wealth. So at the
Mm,
first part of this, I just want to say, don't plan on your parents leaving you a ton of money.
mhm.
Some people are very surprised sometimes because parents a lot of times in my offices, in my conference room, when they're sitting across the table from me, I always say there are people who want to leave their kids a ton of money, and
Mhm.
there are people who don't want to leave their kids very much money. And I've had a lot of parents say, you know what we've done? We have educated our kids on how to build generational wealth, and we've built it, and we're going to use ours. We're going to
Mhm.
enjoy ours. We're going to,
Mhm.
it's the old proverbial, I hope the last check they write bounces because I've taught my kids to build it. So be careful about just sitting back and planning on, oh, mom and dad, when they're gone, I'll get their house, I'll get their IRAs, their 401ks. Look in some obituary columns online or on a newspaper and find out people are living a whole lot longer.
For
So
sure.
you
Yep.
you better not count on it always being there for you, and you better go through a grieving process, not a grabbing process.
Mhm.
And by that I mean, I've in 29 years I've had people call me and say, "Hey, my mom passed away. You don't know me, but I'm the beneficiary of their stuff, and I need to know how much they've got, and I need to know how I can get a hold of it." I mean, that kind of attitude, almost that aggressive sometimes.
Mm,
So
mhm.
don't be that way. Be
Mhm.
somebody who loves your parents. They've set you up, and you know what? A lot of those people, Kristen, are very shocked
Mhm.
because their parents lived so long and it costs a lot to live a long time. It
Yep.
costs a lot for health insurance. It costs a lot for long-term care. It costs a lot to keep the house maintained. And guess what? They get almost nothing and they're really shocked and they're downtrodden and they've wasted their life of building generational wealth. So don't just
Mhm.
grab it. Don't just think it's going to be there.
That it's just gonna
Grieve.
be handed to you. Yeah.
It's not necessarily going to be handed to you.
Right.
Now, when it comes to receiving it, there are two friends you have that you might not even know yet, you might have never needed.
Mm.
You need number one, you need a tax professional. And I'll go ahead and tell you number two, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. You need a financial advisor. You
Yep.
need a plan for your taxes and you need a plan for your future. Now, let's talk about taxes. Passing generational wealth, there's some ways right now, it's pretty cool. I
Mhm.
mean, right now, the generational wealth can pass to the tune of from one parent to you of $13.61 million can be exempt. Okay, so that's a whole lot. But I got to tell you, there is a roadblock coming. There is a stop sign coming. There is a block wall coming, and that's around 2026 because we don't know what estate taxes are going to be after that point.
Right, and
So,
there's talk of it getting that exemption getting cut down to, half, right? Essentially?
well, even more than that. I mean, if you go to what some of my buddies who do the same thing and just having come out of an ed slot training last week in Indianapolis, as the time we're making this show, I mean, there are states that now it's $1 million is
Yeah.
all that can pass. You say, well, that's not bad. I'll take the $1 million. I don't think my parents have that much other than their house. Bing, 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 bing. Think about what a house is valued at in Southern California.
Right.
That might be $1 million already right there. And the estate tax could hit you, could hurt you. And here's another thing I see. Last week, one of my advisors came in to see me and they said, look, this person's been working with a young guy from a big box firm. And that's one of those big firms you see all the commercials about. You don't see commercials from Mosley Wealth Management, but you see those commercials. And this guy was working with a young guy at a big box firm. And he inherited an IRA from his mom about 4 years ago, and the guy just rolled it right into his personal IRA with the support and encouragement of his young, naive advisor. If you receive an IRA from your parents, that has to go into what's called an inherited IRA, or another word for it is a beneficiary IRA. It cannot go into your IRA. So that's one where you need a CPA or maybe a financial advisor can help you. We help people with those kind of things. So you got to really be careful for taxes, because those taxes can really hurt you. Here's one more thing on taxes. You've got a step up in basis right now in effect. And that means that whatever your parents paid for something, they're going to have to pay tax if they sell it in their lifetime, their house, stock, mutual funds that are not in an IRA. They're going to have to pay tax at their rate if they sell it when they are alive. But if they leave it to you after they've passed, right now, there's a step up in basis so that the day and the value of that item, whatever it was the day you receive it from your deceased parents, that's your basis. So you don't have to pay tax on any growth of your parents experience. They're having that go away in some cases, or they're talking about having that go away. So you can inherit a lot, but you might have to pay a ton of money in taxes if you do it incorrectly, or if you do it improperly, and you just go make and start doing and grabbing money and taking without talking to a tax professional, without talking to a financial planner, you could really be in trouble.
And that is why, one of the many reasons why it's so important to have your own customized retirement blueprint. And that number to call to claim yours is 888-930-5609. You know, Tom, I think of what you were just sharing, and it's sad how many folks can make a decision without realizing, especially the tax consequences, implications. I recently heard a story of a woman who received an inheritance from her mother, and she was working with a bigger corporate firm, and that individual was not an expert when it came to tax planning like you and the team of Mosley Wealth Management are. And unfortunately, this advisor caused her to make a decision that then jacked up her tax bill to $77,000 for this year. And
Wow.
she had no idea. And the sad thing is that could have been completely avoided had she received the right kind of guidance and the right kind of information. So it is so important that you handle inheritance well, in that you know all the implications. We say this on the show every week. How you make a decision in one area of your financial life can and will affect all the others. You cannot afford not to look at all these things from that comprehensive, holistic point of view.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some things I could still do even on the modern cars, but I'm not a mechanic.
Right.
When something's wrong with my car, I need help. I need professional help. I mean, I can change windshield wipers sometimes, and I can do different things, but if it's very complex or very involved, I need that professional to get a hold of it. And that's where you need that financial advisor to build your plan. You need a tax professional to make sure that you brought it through the transition, the inheriting of it in the right way from a tax standpoint. And then you need to put together your own plan. And often you've got an 80-plus-year-old parent passing away and leaving it to you in your 40s and your 50s. And you're going to invest that with a different horizon. I've had people come to me, Kristin, and they've said, I'm just going to leave it where my mom and dad had it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your mom and dad probably had it on a time horizon that was appropriate, hopefully, for them.
Right.
Your time horizon is completely different. So now it's no longer, I understand the loyalty. I understand that novelty of leaving it where mom and dad, even leaving it with the guy who helped mom and dad. But you need to have somebody who's a professional, who's got you in focus, to rebuild that financial plan for you.
Absolutely.
And one of the things they need to do, and a lot of brokers don't like to do this, but if you receive an inheritance, I think one of the best ways for you to build your own inheritance and wealth is to pay off your debt. I mean, that is, it's one thing to be making 7 or 8 or 9% a year over here, but if you're paying 19% credit card interest on your credit cards, I mean, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
So one of the things I encourage people to do in building a financial plan when they've inherited a chunk of money is to pay off your debt, get it behind you. And that's one of the things where we really help people. So we start building that financial plan for them, not just a redo of their parents.
Right. And you know what's so interesting is so many of these things that we've already talked about on today's show are happening simultaneously. You might be listening out there going, okay, I'm in a season of my life where I'm trying to build generational wealth for my heirs, but you could also be in that season where you're inheriting it. And so there's just so many implications for how these two worlds fit together.
Inheriting it can become a boost for your personal building of generational wealth, or it could become a burden. And so that's where we step in and we help people build a retirement blueprint, not for your parents, but we build a retirement blueprint for you. One guy told me one time, he said, "Oh man, I'm so glad we did this." He said, I think it's like my parents' house. I would never want to live in their house. It was perfect for them, but it wouldn't be perfect for me. And we build that retirement blueprint for you so it can be perfect for you. But you've got to call and get on our schedule so we can help.
When you call in, schedule a time to come in and meet with one of the all-star advisors at the various office locations scattered throughout Southern California, the one that's most convenient for you. Also, Tom and the team are available to meet with you via Zoom as well. That number to call to claim your retirement blueprint is 888-930-5609. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to be talking about passing on generational wealth. You're not going to want to miss what Tom has to share about that. Stay with us.
With today's rising interest rate environment, have you considered refinancing your retirement? When interest rates go low, you might be able to refinance your homes, your car loans, and even your credit card rates because it could help you keep more of your own money each month. When interest rates go up, it may make sense to refinance your retirement. Higher interest rates could provide income opportunities that you may not be aware of. What works for your portfolio during low interest rate environments may not work for you in a high interest rate environment. So find out if a retirement refi could work better for you. Don't look down at today's higher interest rates. Find out if a retirement refi could work for you. Call Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management at 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609. With rising interest rates, it might be time for you to refi your retirement.
Are you worried about taxes eating into your retirement savings? By engaging in savvy tax planning, you might be able to create greater tax efficiency in your retirement plan. At Mosley Wealth Management, our team of retirement planning specialists can help you explore tax-deferred and tax-free investment options, as well as strategies to help potentially minimize your tax burden in retirement. Don't let taxes derail your retirement plans. Let us help you create a tax-efficient financial plan and work towards maximizing your savings and minimizing your taxes. Call Tom Mosley of Right on the Money and Mosley Wealth Management today to learn more about our tax planning solutions. Call 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609. Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California, and I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. Today, we are talking all about generational wealth, but before we dive back in, Tom, I know that you and the team are extremely busy hosting a bunch of live events throughout Southern California. Why don't you share with our listeners a little bit more about what's coming down the pike?
The best way to find out is go to our website. We talk about at those events a Social Security workshop. It's going to be 1 hour on Social Security. A tax workshop is going to be 1 hour on retirement taxes. A retirement master class, which we have coming, we have a couple of those coming in the next month on a Saturday. That's from about 10 or 10:30, depending on the location. Sometimes we can't get into the venue till 10:30, but that's going to be about a 2.5 to 3 hour class. And we cover those. If we do it during the week, it's a 2-hour class, a retirement master class. It's a big overview of everything we do in the retirement blueprint. Now, I know it takes time. Our goal is for you to come to those things. And when you walk out of there, you say, I found value in spending my time here. I learned something. And then that'll give you a whole lot better idea of, hey, do we want to maybe go and work with Tom or the team members or some of the team members here at Mosley Wealth Management? And that'll give you a really good view of who we are. So jump on that website. We'd love to see you. It's now very seldom, Kristin, that we have any event that we don't have people who are coming through our website. And every weekend when we do this show, we have 5 to 10 people sign up for different events all over the next month and sprinkled out over the next month or two. And we'd love to see you. We'd love to meet you.
Absolutely. And these events are completely free to you. All we ask is that you do go ahead and register ahead of time so that Tom and the team can be prepared with enough materials for everyone who's going to be in attendance. So, again, to check out the list of events and see ones that are going to be near you, simply visit the website mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's Mosley wealthmanagement.com. And Tom, I know one of the biggest compliments I hear folks give you is that when they meet you and they meet the team, they say, wow, you're the same in person as you are on the radio or as you are on your TV show. And I just think that that's a huge compliment to you. And I know you're excited to connect with more folks this summer throughout the different events you're hosting.
I tell you what, I am who I am. I can't be anybody else. So what you see is what you get, I guess, Kristin.
Exactly right. But that's a huge compliment for sure. Well, we've talked about making generational wealth. We've talked about receiving it. It's time to talk about passing it on. And, I think what's interesting, Tom, you were sharing earlier how different folks handle this idea of passing on their wealth different ways. And the point is that there's no wrong answer. It's your money. It's your wealth. You get to decide what you want to do with it. You get to decide how you want to pass it on. And then your job as a financial advisor is to come along someone and say, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, here's some things to think about. Here's the most tax efficient way to do it. And it's like putting a giant puzzle together.
It is. And the people who are so anxious to go ahead and get that puzzle put together are the second segment of this show. We talked about inheriting generational wealth. And this segment is a little bit different, passing along generational wealth. The people who have inherited generational wealth in a cumbersome or incomplete way are the easiest people to talk about passing along generational wealth, because a lot of people come to me and they say, I don't want my kids to go through what I had to go through when my dad passed away first, my mom was left, or my mom passed away first and my dad was left, and the one that was surviving, they didn't have complete records, they didn't have it where they should, they were private about their affairs, and they didn't want to share anything with anybody until after they were both gone, and it was a mess. And so that's why it's important that if you're not in that situation right now and you're still either you're creating it or you've inherited it, it's important that you get things set up so that you can pass it along. I think you have an obligation also to grow your inherited wealth, your generational wealth, and not just blow it. And the biggest thing you have to be careful for is taxes.
For sure. And I think that, I love and appreciate that you are so passionate about helping folks not pay any more to the IRS than you are legally required to pay. And this is like I'm imagining a minefield right now, right? You don't know what you don't know. And taxes can be one of the biggest ways for folks to inadvertently blow their generational wealth if it's not planned for.
That's exactly right. For instance, there's the step up in basis that we mentioned in the last segment on a house. And that means that if your parents bought a house or you bought a house at $250,000, not unusual if you've had it for 30 years here in Southern California, and now it's worth $1.25 million, then if you sold it, you'd get some exclusions because you've lived in it. And, you still are going to have some capital gains tax to pay if you sell it in your lifetime. Whereas if you, under current law that is soon to possibly be changed, okay, if you sell it and in your lifetime, and you're going to have to pay tax, but if you leave it to your heirs, to your children, they might not have to pay any tax on it because they get what's called a step up in basis. We talked about the estate tax. I've got a person that called me this past week, and they said, I need to talk to Tom. I got back in touch with him. This guy runs a business in the town where I live. And he said, my parents, his dad passed away a few years ago, and his mom is wanting to leave him $500,000, and she wants to go ahead and give it to him. There's a way to do that. There's a legal way to do that through the estate tax and through the estate laws that are out there now, she can pass along up to $13.61 million in 2024. That could go down to $1 million in 2 or 3 years. So there are ways to pass on an inheritance. And here's one thing I've got to tell everybody out there. We don't know what the laws might be in the future. You only know what the laws are right now.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important that you understand that this is a time-sensitive issue. And you need to be working with someone, number one, who's up to date on the tax laws. You also probably need to be working, and I'll be the first to admit this, with not only a financial planner for yourself, but also with a tax professional.
Yeah.
Because there's so many of these things that, boom, you could move something and it could cost you 50% of that in taxes if you move it incorrectly. I've got a phone call to make next week on that. So, it's very important that you either are talking to somebody. Let me give you 2 options here. Talking to somebody who knows what they're talking about, or number 2, you're talking to somebody who understands what you're talking about, but they can get you in touch with the right professional who can really know what they need, what they're talking about. So it's really important that you do that.
Well, and that's one of the things that you do is you partner with, if you're working with someone and they've got this complicated tax situation, you're going to invite their CPA into that conversation and work with them to do what's best for the client.
I already admitted I don't know anything about being a mechanic, okay? There are a lot of things in the tax laws. I train with Ed Slott. We've talked about that on the show. I just got out of 2 intensive days, but we can't cover everything in the tax laws and the tax code. So, yeah, you need a professional. And here, people think sometimes, well, it's my kids, they're inheriting it. I really don't care what kind of tax they pay. Wait a minute. If you're married, it could be your wife. It could be your surviving spouse because, it's okay. But you got to remember that if you leave a big tax burden in an old 401k or an IRA or a 403b that you might still have, you're married filing jointly maybe now, and that's a double the size of the tax bracket. Well, if one of you passes away in that marriage, that tax bracket the following tax year goes to 50% as much as it was.
Yeah.
So you could be leaving them a humongous tax bracket. That's why you need a financial plan. In that financial plan, we can show you a tax report that will tell you, first of all, in that tax report, if something doesn't happen to you, what kind of taxes you're going to face out of those 401ks, 403bs, and IRAs that you have. But if something does happen to you, we can also show you what happens to a surviving spouse. They call it the widow's penalty. And finally, what will happen to your children and what will happen from a tax perspective. So passing along money, I mean, it's sad enough to go through the loss of a loved one. It's hard enough to go through the grief that everyone goes through to somebody that you love. And there may be some that you lose a loved one, and for some reason I've seen people that were elated that they lost a loved one and they had joy. And so whatever you're going through, it's an emotional time. It also could be a serious time of you doing the wrong thing. So what you need to do in terms of passing on an inheritance is get it all set. You can't control it from the grave unless it's a real complicated, expensive trust. You need to get it all set up right so that you don't become a burden to your loved ones when you pass away. It's enough for them to be sad, the loss, the grief, and all of those things, but then to have the burden of having extra and accumulated tax that they shouldn't have. You need to get a plan, and that's all part of what we do in building a retirement blueprint for you.
It's one of the most loving things that you can ever do for those that you leave behind, to make sure you have that plan in place. And so we invite you to pick up the phone and call 888-930-5609 to get started on your very own complimentary retirement blueprint. When we come back, it's that time of the week where we get to answer some listener questions. Stay with us to find out. We might even be answering one of yours. We'll be back right after this.
Is having $1 million enough to retire? For years, many have considered this to be the goal amount to have for retirement savings. But that's the $1 million question. Is that enough for today's modern retiree? Are you sure you've saved enough for a 25 or 30-year retirement? Are you concerned about covering large expenses, including taxes and long-term care? If so, you're not alone. But there is a solution. With a comprehensive financial plan, you can take control of your finances to help you achieve your long-term goals. At Mosley Wealth Management, let us help you work towards peace of mind by implementing a complete retirement strategy. Call Tom Mosley and the team of Mosley Wealth Management right away to receive your complimentary, comprehensive written financial plan. That's 888-930-5609.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, and it's that time of the week where we get to answer our listener questions. Now, all of these questions have come in either through folks who've been listening and emailing their questions in, or from folks who've come in to meet with Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management to receive their complimentary retirement blueprint. We always change the names to protect your privacy, but if you have a question that you would love for Tom to answer on the air, that email address to use is info@mosleywealthmanagement.com. Again, that's info@mosleywealthmanagement.com. Our first question this weekend. Now, this is really fun, Tom. This question came from Greg in Indianapolis. Yes, you heard that right. Indianapolis, Indiana. Tell us a little bit about how he got connected with you, first of all.
Well, you may be listening out there on KNX in the Los Angeles area at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. You may be listening to KYXY down in San Diego at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning. And we also have a TV show in LA. In case you didn't know about it, it's on Channel 9 most every Saturday when we don't get preempted at noon on Saturday, Channel 9. And we're down on KGTV, ABC station, either at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. They bounce us back and forth on Sunday morning. But I'm also privileged to be a part of about 12, maybe 14 or 15 different advisors, and we put together a national show called the Wealth Council, and that's on Fox Business. It's on at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, where this gentleman heard it and saw it and watched it every single Sunday, 11 o'clock on the West Coast on Fox Business, the Wealth Council. And I'm not always on there. Some of my compadres are on there, and they do the shows at other times, but I think we just shot 3 shows last week that I will be on. And Greg found out about it. I'm the oldest guy I think on there, and maybe not, but I'm pretty young. And he called in, or he wanted to find out how to get in touch with the old guy. And I don't mind that at all.
With the wisdom comes with the age, right?
You got it. You got it. And so he got a hold of our information and he sent us this question. So I thought it was pretty cool.
So Greg asked, I'm confused about when RMDs, those are the required minimum distributions, have to come out. My friends are telling me 3 different ages are the starting points. Has it changed recently? I want to put my RMDs into a Roth IRA when that time comes, so I need to know.
Okay, a couple of things here, Greg. I'm so glad you fought through and got a hold of me with this question. Yes, it's changed recently, and then it changed the change, okay? In the past 5 years, it's been 2 other age levels. It is 73. I want to say that 5 times. It is 73. 73. If you were born in 1951, you have to, or earlier, you have to be paying RMDs out of an IRA, and maybe if you're not working, probably out of a 401k or a 403b or a 457. I say maybe because if you're working, you don't have to start taking your RMDs out of a 401k or a 4 plan if you're still working. We can all clear that up, but it's 73. Everybody got that? Greg, it was 70 and a half. They moved it to 72 and they moved it to 73. I've got inside information. They're going to move it again later, but right now it is what? What is it, Kristin?
73.
Yeah, let's 73. Let's make sure you know that, all right?
And it's going to be a while before they move it again.
It's going to be a while.
Yeah.
Yes. But the last question, the last sentence, you said you want to move your RMDs into a Roth IRA. The buzzer goes off on that. You cannot take your RMDs out of an IRA or a 401k and convert those over into a Roth. Those have to go into an after-tax account. Now, if you're working, you can contribute up to $8,000 if you're over 50 this year into an IRA, regardless of your age, but you cannot take required minimum distributions at age 73 and put them into a Roth. You know, they want you to pay tax when it comes out of the IRAs or the 401ks, and they want to put it in an after-tax account. So when it grows, they can tax you again. So understand they're $35 trillion in debt and they're scrambling for money. But Greg, I'm glad, and I hope you're listening somehow, some way. And I know I'll get back to you directly to your email. You cannot put your RMDs into a Roth. You can't convert those into a Roth.
And what that makes me think of, Tom, too, I'd be curious what his motivation was for doing that, because as we've talked about on the show previously, there are some ways to avoid the tax implications of RMDs if you use the strategy of a QCD, that qualified charitable distribution. So that could maybe apply to this situation.
That's right. If you're in your 70s, you have an opportunity at that level to move over. I think the limit's $105,000 this year. You can move that over directly from your IRA and give it to a charity. They get the full amount, you get the full write-off. I mean, it's a great way to do it. That's just one of the tricks, one of the plans. I say tricks because, you know, you want to pay. One of the premises of our company's mission is that we want you to pay as little in taxes as you're legally required to pay. And if we can find out in the tax code some ways of saving you money, and that QCD is a possible way of doing that, if you're in your 70s, you need to talk to us. And a lot of people say, well, my guy's not talking, my lady's not talking to me about that. Right. Most brokers don't talk to their people about taxes. They just, you know, it's a yo-yo situation. You're on your own.
Yeah.
Okay. With us, we try to help you save as much money as you can legally in taxes.
Absolutely. Well, time to move on to our next question, which is from Gary in Rialto. And I feel like this question is so appropriate on the heels of our conversation we've been having today about generational wealth. Gary asks, is it wise or unwise to try to start planning how I'll handle the inheritance that I will get when my mother passes away? She's in her late 80s and in declining health, and I anticipate a substantial amount when she passes away. I certainly don't want to ask her what I can expect to get, but I do want to be able to start planning. How do you advise people go about this kind of situation?
It's a minefield. My dad, before he passed away, would never tell me anything about his finances.
Mm.
I can hear him saying, son, you're going to have to wait until I'm gone to find out everything. And he had things together. He had a trust. He had some issues that he could have done a little bit better on, but he really had things together. Gary, like I said earlier, your mom could live an awful long time, even with declining health. And that substantial amount could go to her doctors and to the hospitals and to nursing homes and other things like that. Now, I would be more concerned with, instead of finding out how much she has and how much you're going to inherit, and it may be a byproduct of doing what I'm going to suggest, but I would just be concerned that she meet with a proper trust attorney if that's what's needed, and that money, if it's substantial, that it gets passed to you and any brothers and sisters you have in the proper way, like we talked about earlier, from a tax standpoint. So perfect question for this show, Gary. You need to talk to her more about the transmission of that wealth rather than the amount of that wealth and what you're going to do with it when you get it. Because if it doesn't get passed the right way, you could have a whole lot less than what you're anticipating.
Mm-hmm. Well, it just speaks to, I thought of this earlier when we were talking about passing on generational wealth. It's so heartbreaking when parents think they're doing the right thing of leaving a large sum behind, but if the tax implications haven't been thought through, if it's not being done in the most tax efficient manner, it's actually like a ticking tax time bomb that's being left for folks rather than a blessing. It becomes more of that burden.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the idea sometimes that, if I leave anything to my kids, it's a gift, so they can be thankful for whatever they get. But if you're in your 80s And Gary, you didn't tell us your age, but you're probably in your 50s or 60s, and you might be in your prime earning years, earning more than you've ever made before. And if some of that money is in an IRA and you have to take it out within 10 years, that's just going to raise your income, because all of that comes out as earned income. It's just going to raise your income over the next few years. So it could put you into a substantially higher tax bracket, Gary, by inheriting that in the wrong way. So your mom probably needs or should do some tax planning and some estate planning so that that inheritance comes to you and any siblings you might have in the right way.
Well, Tom, let me ask you this on the heels of that. How do you often recommend that families have these kinds of conversations? Because I know that you often work with parents and children of that same family, but that can be a hard thing to bring up.
It can be a hard thing to bring up. I've had people bring their parents in and sit in the waiting room because they wanted me to meet with their parents, but they were the parents didn't want them to be in the meeting. I've had people come in and bring parents and sit with me in the conference room with them, which I like, because then, there's no cognitive issues and there's no problems there. But then we're able to really have a discussion. And I've had people bring their parents in, and their parents were to the point cognitively where they just sat there and didn't say a word till the end. And they finally turned and says, "Mom, does this sound good to you?" And I know good and well, Mom didn't really comprehend very much of anything that we were talking about. So, but the point of it is, you're bringing your parents in. The point of it is you're trying to bring your parents in, whatever you can approach and whatever you can do. You're trying to bring them in so that they can get some plans laid out for themselves. It is so common that the generation before us did not have their act together when it came to financial planning. So one of the things we do, if you're 80, if you're 60, if you're 20, like we talked about in the first segment and just starting out, we can help you build a retirement blueprint. We can help you avoid all of these problems and pitfalls. The best way to solve a problem is to head it off before it ever happens. And that's what we do. And that's what we offer everyone. We've got offices all over Southern California. I've got 6 fiduciary advisors, and we do not charge you anything to meet with us and to put together a plan for you. Only thing it costs you is a little skin off your finger to dial the number to call us.
We promise it won't cost you any pain at all. So again, for no cost, no charge, no obligation, that number to call for your complimentary retirement blueprint is 888-930-5609. And the team of Mosley Wealth Management looks forward to connecting with you soon. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. And we look forward to being back with you next time here at Right on the Money with Tom Mosley.
Tom Mosley and the team have helped thousands of folks like you in Southern California plan for their retirement. Now make the call yourself. 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609. Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through Mosley Wealth Management Incorporated. Mosley Wealth Management and Mosley Insurance and Financial Services are affiliated companies by common ownership license number OB61811. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refers to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength, claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. This content is intended for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the needs of an individual situation. All hypothetical examples are provided for illustrative purposes only. They do not represent real-life scenarios. Mosley Insurance and Financial Services, nor its agents or representatives, may give tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with a qualified professional for guidance before making any investment decisions. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. Some of the information provided may be from one or more third parties, which we believe to be reliable sources, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Mosley Insurance and Financial Services.